Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Before I get started, I'm gonna ask y'all to do a few things for me. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you will be notified ASAP Rocky, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Now, for those of y'all who may be new to my page, I was arrested and I got sentenced to 16 years plus life. I ended up doing 24 years straight in a lot of these California prisons. And during that time, I accumulated some stories. So today, though, this story right here is going to be about the climate of prison when Tupac got killed. I never forget, when Tupac got killed, I had just got to prison, basically. I got to prison in July of '96. I believe Pac was killed in September. Now, when Tupac was killed, just so happened, I happened to be in a cell with a dude from Compton. Actually, a very well-known dude from Compton by the name of Big H, or Heron. Big H was from the Grandees. You know, I believe later on it ended up becoming a Nutty Block. So, when Tupac got killed, me and H happened to be in a cell, or excuse me, when he got killed and it came to our attention, we happened to be in the cell playing chess. I believe we seen it on, on the news or something like late night news, NBC or whatever, around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, if my memory serves me correct. So, we continued to play chess or whatever. And maybe about, I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking the next day after Tupac got killed, after he got shot. The next day after he got shot, if I can remember right, we're playing chess. And it comes on the news, because I remember maybe about 15 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, somewhere up in there, after us seeing the news story, my cellie Big H had a phone call. So Big H go out the cell, he go use the phone. The way the phone system worked up in there is, in order to have a phone call, let's say for instance on Monday, they'd come around with the phone list and you'd sign up. Somebody would come around with a sheet and you'd pick a time, so you had to sign up Sunday in order to have a call on the previous day. Now, this particular time, I was new to prison, and in order to get a phone call, you had to be A1A. A1A is basically it's working status. You had to have a job, and so if you didn't have a job, you got a phone call once a month. Yeah, which is some cold stuff, man. So, and sometimes when you get to a prison, depending on just the waiting list or how backed up the jobs are, it could take you a year or two to get a job, and so that's cold, man. You sitting around, without a job, and so you can't make a phone call. Also, you can't go out to the yard. You can't go to the yard except for, I believe it was you couldn't go to the yard on the weekends, and so certain pluses came with being having a job and stuff in programming. So, like I said, at that point in time, I didn't have a job. But when Big H wasn't using his phone calls, he could sign up and then he'd let me use them. But this particular time, he happened to go use his phone call. So when he come back in the cell, he say, "Hey man, that was my homeboy that killed Tupac." Now at the time when he told me that, I'm thinking, oh man, in my mind, right? I'm thinking, oh man, this dude just want to be connected to something, and I'm thinking, everybody wants to, I guess, indulge in the notoriety of having something to do with that. This is what I'm thinking. But then he went on to tell me about the phone conversation, and he went on to give me the name of the shooter who everybody is claiming, does it. So it's not like it's no secret, it's public record to who everybody was saying the shooter was. So he told me this dude's name, and that was the very first time I had heard that guy's name. First time I'd ever heard of the dude. And then, sure enough, as time goes on, it definitely, this guy's name is definitely being and constantly being brought up as the one who actually shot Tupac. And so, I'll never forget, man, like I say, that Big H came back in and he told me the name. And, it sure enough turned out to be what was said. But, so the next time I remember going to Yard after, after hearing Tupac was killed, maybe he died or whatever shot, I can't remember. Well, yeah, he definitely had died, because I remember after him passing away, going to the Yard, man. Now I'm on a level 4. I'm at Salinas Valley. I'm on a level 4. Salinas Valley is a 180. Now, what a 180 is basically the worst of the worst. It's the highest level of maximum security prison that they have in California, and a 180 is basically what's known as a shoe kickout yard. So when you go to the shoe, which is segregating housing unit, it's an acronym for that. When you go to the shoe for violence, once you're finished doing your term there, then they kick you out to a 180 9 times out of 10, so you have to go to a 180 yard. And so it's basically the worst of the worst. It's where they housing the most violent people. Or if you're coming from reception center, you're coming from the county jail, and you have a case that's deemed very violent. And like I was telling you guys in some of my earlier videos, the California prison system is ran on a point system. So, the more time your crime carries will play a role in how many points you get. Depending on your level of education, they had a bunch of different factors, and so, like I say, a minimum security prison, it might have been, 0 to 19 points. A level 2 would be 20 to possibly 34, so on and so forth, and the way that works is if you had a job and you stayed out of trouble, each year you could minus 8 points off your point system. And if you got into a fight and you got in trouble, then your points would go up, and you'd have to stay on whatever institution you was at. You'd have to stay there longer. So, I've seen dudes come in with 70 points or something, and in 2-3 years, they've gotten so many write-ups, and basically it's infractions in prison. They points may go up another 30 points, and that was easy to do when you came to prison with a life sentence and you didn't care. It was easy to run your points up, and so my goal was to try to get my points down and stay out of trouble for 2 years so I could move to a level 3 institution, which was closer to my family. So anyway, going outside the day after Pac got killed, not necessarily the day after he got shot, but once people learned that he was killed, man, the Yard was real somber, man. It was, it was a trip, man, because it was like people felt they knew Pac, And when I say the Yard was somber, I don't only mean with the blacks, but a whole lot of Hispanics too. A whole lot of, at this point in time, they had Southerners up there. I was at Salinas. There was Southerners and they had Northerners. And the blacks, we would function with the Northerners. We played, when I say Northerners, I'm talking for those of you guys who may not know, who are Hispanics from the northern part of Cali. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe the dividing line is Southern California is from Bakersfield on down. Anything up from Bakersfield on up is considered northern Cali. But don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% on that, because that's not necessarily my politics and this and that. So I don't know. I never got deep into finding out the dividing line and all that stuff. But anyway, those who are from northern Cali, we function with them in terms of, at that point in time, we shared basketball courts. We hung out with them. It was cool, for us to kick it with them. And so even their attitudes and moods were somber, Tupac, even though I wasn't a huge fan of Tupac, I liked a whole lot of Pac stuff before I came to prison, like Soldier Story, Brenda Had a Baby, and stuff like that. But now keep in mind, I was locked up for 94 to 96. So while I'm in the county jail, I'm missing a lot of Pac's rise. You know what I'm saying? I'm not able to hear a lot of music. So that played a part in, not being a huge fan that some other people was. But I remember, man, a lot of people was sad. Deuce was crying, man. This is on a level 4. Deuce was up there crying. I never forget, it was a dude by the name of Ace. Ace was from 9 Deuce Bishop, I believe. And he was a lifer. He came out, he had Tupac tattooed. He also did tattoos. So he he had tattooed, I don't know, I can't remember if it was a picture of Tupac or Tupac's name. I believe it was a picture of Tupac. And I never forget, it was another dude by the name of Ant. Ant was from Black P Stone. Ant told him, hey man, why you got that dude tattooed on? You don't even know that dude, you know. But you know, Ant was a bigger dude, and to be honest, that's something that I wouldn't have said. You know, just behind, you had a lot of dudes in California, from California, man, they love Tupac, you know, and they, you know, saying the wrong thing at that time to the wrong person definitely could have been inflammatory and created a situation, man. And so he said this to him on the basketball court. Nothing ever transpired behind it. You know, the dude just told him, hey, man, I like Pac or whatever. So I stayed there for a little while. Then I happened to walk directly across from the basketball court to a part of the wall where a lot of the Crips hung out at. And somebody happened to be over there playing a Tupac. Actually, they was playing the song Hearts of Men. And then I was listening to the song, and I remember, I never forget. I'm listening to the song, and I say to myself, damn, man, they killed this dude, man. You know, it was just like, even by me not being a humongous fan, you know, the words of the song, man, was just touching me. And just knowing that this dude, you know, he had so much talent, and it was a trip, man. You know, when you walk around the yard, you know, it seemed like you had a lot of people playing his music, you know, even especially Hispanics, Northern Hispanics, Southern Hispanics, pretty much everybody. It seemed like everywhere you went around the yard, man, people was bumping Tupac's music. And, you know, for a long time, and even before Pac got killed, you know, you had dudes from California in prison, it seemed like they had chose sides, you know. And it's easy to, you know, because once the war seemed like it got big between, it went from Tupac and Biggie, and once it seemed like it came a East Coast, West Coast thing, I guess you had dudes, it was easy for dudes to pick their sides, you know. Of course, dudes in California on this part of the country, they was going to feel loyal to Tupac. You know, now me, I'm going to keep it real. I grew up on hip hop, but of course, I listened to a lot of East Coast hip hop. So, you know, I love all type of music, man. But I grew up listening to, you know, Big Daddy Kane, LL Cool J, Run DMC, Rakim, as well as Ice Cube, Ice-T, you know, King T, you know, all the West Coast artists. So I always listened to both. But I'll never forget, man, you know, being in prison, you know, we can only, at that point in time, we could order our music through in a package. So, you know, I think we was only allowed like maybe 8 tapes or something like that. Yes, I said tapes. Back then, we had tapes. And so sometimes I would go to certain dudes, man, who you try to trade music with and hear a little different something. So I'd ask dudes, hey, man, you got any East Coast music? Oh, man, hell no, I don't fuck with that shit. I don't fuck Jay-Z, you know, fuck Biggie, fuck Mobb Deep, you know, all that type of stuff, man. And it was a trip that how a lot of these dudes had come to have this attitude strictly because their loyalty to Tupac, you know, their loyalty to Tupac, they love Tupac. And so that's the side they chose. You know, they chose the side to ride with Pac, and a lot of dudes did not listen to a lot of East Coast music strictly because of that, you know. So it was like that, man. And like I said, you had dudes on the yard, man, you know, and I guess later on, you know, like I tell y'all, I rap, man. So later on, when Lil Wayne became real popular, I would hear a lot of the dudes coming from the streets or whatever trying to rap and sound like Lil Wayne. It never fails when I was in prison too. Seemed like every white dude I ran across, every single white dude I ran across tried to rap like Eminem. You know, you'd have a white dude from time to time. He'd be bold enough to come over there and hang out with the blacks for a minute and hop into the cypher and start rapping, you know. And every single one I ran across sounded like Eminem. Well, back then at this time, you had a whole lot of brothers also trying to rap like Tupac. Tupac was a huge influence, man, on the times back then, you know. It was phenomenal, the amount of love that these people had for Tupac, man. And, you know, brothers, of course, who had never even met Tupac. And so I trip on, you know, I guess, and so I say that to say that I guess that, you know, Biggie Smalls, which I like him too, and to keep it honest with you, I prefer his music. I prefer his lyrical ability over Pac. To me, Pac was hard, but Biggie was lyrical, and that's the type of dudes that I'm into, you know. So even though I bump both of them, but if you ask me to choose who was the better rapper, I would go with I would definitely go with Biggie. You know, unfortunately, Biggie just didn't get a chance to put out all the material that Pac had put out, especially because Biggie would go in there and he would record, you know, in the moment and right off the top of his head. So he never recorded a lot of you know material in terms of songs and this and that. But going back to Biggie, right? I believe Biggie failed to realize the amount of love that California had for Pac. And I believe he, you know, not realizing that he made a humongous era of judgment by choosing to come back to California, you know, during that time at the climate when Pac had got killed and things was you know, dudes was still upset about it, you know. Now also, I don't know if you know, I noticed it. To me, it sounded like on a few of Biggie's songs, he was kind of like taking shots at Pac, you know. And back then, this was an extremely different time. Of course, Dissing the Dead way back then in '96 was something that was basically unheard of. And he had the one song, "Long Kiss Goodbye," where he said something about, you know, we ain't mad at you or something, you know. And he talking about I come out bumping they shit, basic, I'm hard to hit. But basically, you know, during the line, he says, we ain't mad at you. And I felt that it was, even though I liked Biggie, I felt that it was a direct shot at Tupac, because Tupac had a song called I Ain't Mad at You. And so I also, you know, you got to keep in mind now, this is 1996, you know, 94, 95, 96, up in those times, there was not a lot of Crips and, well, I don't believe there was any Crips and Bloods in New York. Now, of course, you know, New York is saturated with Bloods and, you know, some Crips out there too. But I remember there was a point in time, especially back in hip hop or whatever, how they would ridicule the West Coast for having Crips and Bloods. They said it was so stupid, you know, for dudes to be out here banging over colors. You know, I never forget, because like I say, I'm a hip hop enthusiast, man. And so I would hear certain rappers, you know, basically try to degrade West Coast rappers for gang banging. And so I don't believe that I don't believe that Biggie knew he didn't know about how serious it was for a gang member to feel, you know, retaliation was immediate, it was necessary, and it was something that had to be done. And, you know, by him not being aware and immersed in the gang culture, like people from California were, he had no idea, you know. And like I say, I just think that was you know, a tremendous era on his part to think that he could come back to California at a time like this. Even though I don't believe he had nothing to do with Tupac's death, but that's just my personal opinion. But whether he did or whether he didn't, it was just a bad time, you know. It was a bad time, man, for him to come to California and think, not only come to California, but go to this public award show where the world could see you. You know what I'm saying? You know, that was basically, back then, he didn't realize it, but basically, he was dropping his location, you know, for the world to see it. And so, who knows who had some, do I think he died as a direct result of Tupac being killed? Yeah, I do, you know. So, to me, that was wrong of him to think that he could come back to California at a time like that, you know. And so, you know, because now while you're at this award show, everybody can see you. You know what I'm saying? You may have dudes up in there, man. It may have not been connected. It may or it may not have been connected, you know, to anybody in death row. But just, you could have had a super fan up in there. You know, you could have had just some regular dudes, man. Some regular dudes that knew you was up in there and wanted to, felt like they was riding for Pac. And so, yeah, man, that was a bad mistake, and it led to him being killed, you know. But by him not realizing the culture and stuff, I guess he felt that it was okay, you know. He didn't know, man, how loved Tupac was in California. But like I say, I never forget, man, when Pac was killed, you know, you had many dudes crying, man. You had many dudes upset. And for a long, long time, I'm gonna keep it real with you, that was a conversation that I wouldn't even involve myself in. Who was better between Tupac and Biggie, because the love for Tupac was so humongous in California that, those type of words and trivial arguments could easily lead into some big discussions. I mean, some big fights and stuff. That's just like I've seen dudes get ready to fight over football, by their team, a Cowboy fan, maybe versus a Raider fan. It gets extremely heated. So discussing Tupac back then was something that I never even got involved in. I would have not dared said that I thought Biggie was better than Tupac, and that's just keeping it real. I wouldn't have said that probably till about maybe 10 years after Pac died, because it can lead to some unnecessary bullshit. Dudes from California, certain dudes, man, had so much love for Tupac, and so no matter what penitentiary that I went to, no matter how much time had elapsed since Tupac was killed, you always can find somebody with Tupac music. Tupac music is always being bumped. It's always being played in the penitentiaries until the day that I paroled in 2018. Man, Tupac, you could find Tupac just like you could find a knife in a California prison. People out here love Tupac, man. And so I'm just giving y'all a little insight on the climate, back in those times. Like I said, you had dudes choosing sides, man, and it was like dudes basically felt, they was a part of the beef. Dudes didn't like East Coast music, and it was a long, long time before, dudes would even probably was listening to Jay-Z and stuff like that. Now, like I say, me, I'm a Jay-Z fan, and I had a couple CDs. I had Jay-Z, Mobb Deep, and some dude like, man, what you got that shit for? What did you do and listen to that? Some dudes would righteously get upset with me for having Jay-Z, for having Mobb Deep, stuff like that. Matter of fact, I had a celly at one point in time, man, my boy Maniac. And Maniac, he got on me about having Jay-Z and Mobb Deep. But I had Mobb Deep Murder Music. But I remember I said, man, this shit go right here. And the more I played it, he ended up becoming a Mobb Deep fan. So Maniac, when you see this video, I know you remember that. Holla at your boy, man. Yeah, Mobb Deep Murder Music. He used to work out to it all the time. Yeah, but so like I said, man, that's just the climate of that. And the next segment I'm gonna do, hip hop in prison. I'm gonna talk about 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. Cause that album right there, man, I've never seen so many people playing a person's music the way they was bumping 50 Cent. So, man, if y'all like this, man, leave me some comments, man. Let me know what y'all think, man. This is another segment I got. I'm talking about hip hop in prison, just music in prison in general too, because dudes bump a lot of R&B. A lot of these killers up in prison. I guess people get the idea or whatever that dudes in prison don't listen to Ray J. I'm not a big R&B fan, but Pretty Tony, Jodeci, the same dudes that Keith Sweat that's playing Jodeci and Keith Sweat, the same dudes that's bumping Jodeci all night be the same ones that'll come out and stab the hell about you. So don't try to put people into a certain category because you think that they shouldn't listen to a certain type of music, man. But anyway, that's my story on that right there, man. Y'all get at me and let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what time it is, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of the day. Resume normal program.